Hi, Richard Norton here with Master Fariborz. As you know, we often get together and do these little talks where we discuss different topics we think are pertinent to the martial arts. And I'm down here at Team Karate Centre in Woodland Hills, so off we go again. Just understand, whenever we do these, it's just our opinions. I know people like to get in there and have sort of assess what individuals like us happen to say, and you're welcome to that, but again, it's just an opinion. And the subject we were wanting to touch on today was the subject of role models
and gurus
and masters and everything else. And well, let me throw it back at you. What in your mind is a role model or a, what's the word, somebody deserving of the title of role model?
Right. Well, you know, in my opinion, I can look at someone for what they can do first, purely, and I can admire that, use them as a role model for what they can do, the results that they can produce in one thing they do. But who they are is, to me, a lot more important. Right, so the older I get, I think I'm going back to. I think the character level is a little bit more important to me, actually a lot more important to me than competency, right? Because I don't. So like you always talk about that is I want to listen to people that are real. Mm-hmm. How many years of actual experience have you had before you tell me anything about this? And if you are truly a teacher, which I've been exposed to, people like you and Sensei Benny, they don't need to talk. Just they're teaching, and as their being every day is my lesson right there, because I watch them do it. They don't go out there and say do this, and but I think we get confused sometimes by competency or people just talking.
Yeah, we always get back, and I love referring back to Sensei Benny the Jet Urquidez, who's, for those who don't know, legendary kickboxer, but one of my few role models. And one of his favorite sayings, which I've said before, is when somebody tries to teach him something or tell him something, he always asks, before you go on with that lesson, what personal life experience do you have with what you're telling me? And hence, something I use all the time too, that's important, which you were referring to. It's not the 2 hours on the mat, it's the 22 hours off the mat. How you to behave, how you manage, how's your courtesy, how's your sense of honor and integrity. And this is what brings me to the point where for me, it's a bit of a worry about role models. We talk about, yes, you can admire somebody and treat somebody as a role model that's excelled in a particular area, in this case martial arts. There's so many martial artists who become amazingly good and excellent at their art in one area, and that's deserving of adoration and everything else, and you look up to them. How did you get that level of excellence? But what I would just caution people and students, and younger students in particular, is don't just be in awe of that person that sets themselves up as a role model and expect that everything they do in their life is worthy of that respect, because I'm sorry to say, we know a lot of martial artists, and by the way, include myself in that bag. I don't want to be a role model in life for people. I've had friends of mine that again start up martial arts schools, and suddenly they become life coaches, and I'm like, really? But look at your life. It's all over the shop, whether in relationships, with the way you conduct yourself. And that really scares me, because the one thing that fighters have is a lot of the kids look up to strong people and fighters, and we forget that with that comes a real obligation in the way you behave. And again, not just on the mat, because so many martial artists, they dress up, they've got 8th, 9th degree, grandmaster this, guru this, and they punch around, and it's very much role-playing. It's very much like being an actor, and on the mat they sound all spiritual and everything else. A lot of it, getting back to many, is almost book learned, Then they get off the mat and they're complete dicks, and you go, well, that's not worthy of the respect of a child. And I just say, yes, respect your instructor, respect your master, particularly at what he does, but just be very careful that you're not so much in awe that you'll be influenced by the bad behavior. And I've often said that role models, for me, the role models I have, it's as much about what I never want to do or be like as much as what I do. In other words, what you said, pick out the thing they're great at, but let's not color that and think everything in their lives is worthy of following, you know? And I think that's huge. And it's, as I said, it's a trap, and it can lead to vulnerable students, whether it's females or younger ones, being led into very uncomfortable situations by the mere fact
with
that
all
they...
the stuff going on right now these days, and
Yeah, because they think, oh, he's a martial artist, he must be spiritual, he must have ethics, must have a code of honor and integrity. I'm just telling you, it's not necessarily the case. Now, I'm not saying there aren't legitimate people that are role models 24 hours of the day, but just be careful who you select as your role model is the message that I would put out there.
And one of the things, again, I learned from you, I appreciate you calling me Master Fariborz, because first of all, I haven't mastered shit in my life yet. I like the word sensei. I like the word sensei because it literally means I'm in this particular field and time, I'm better than the other person, so you call me sensei. And I like that we got that from Sensei Benny. But how do we do that? How do we create that in our life to become role models? I think we need to become a role model for ourselves first, right? Purely. We need more private victories. We don't need to make fake public victories. Creating public victories that are not backed up by personal victories is a setup. And people get old, and I talk to some of the older martial artists, nobody here, of course, because we're not old, but they become bitter. And that's the first sign that tells me there's something wrong, when they're bitter. Everything is just, oh, I should have this, and whatever. Versus, to have so much private victories, their self-esteem is so impacted by, their inside, that they don't need the outside stuff all the time, and
I think it just takes work. There's an old saying, in English sort of culture, that to be a gentleman, you have to actively behave like a gentleman in order to become that. And I think what you said, that, there's a thing about being famous. Famous people, whether in martial artists or celebrity, can be role models, but they shouldn't be role models because they're famous. Because often kids see this bad behavior and think, oh, I want to be like him, I want to behave like that, I want to be antisocial and everything else. Yes, in some things it's the role that a certain actor or musician might play. I don't believe that should ever be the case with a martial artist, for the mere fact that you have the martial and you have the art. Right. And with that becomes that balance. And I'm just imploring that any instructors out there that believe, whether they like it or not, that they're role models. And by the way, a lot of legit people don't choose to be a role model. They become that by what they do. Just realize that's an incredible responsibility you have. And an example that we talk about is why it's so important to keep the etiquette of the arts and the traditional arts of going in and just bowing to each other. Because I believe that as adults, if you've got kids that look up to us as, oh, we're tough, we can fight, if they see us actually being respectful and humbling ourselves to each other on the mat, I think it automatically gives that child a license to do the same thing. And that's just one example, I think, of being an active and a very conscious role model, even if it's kind of the antithesis of what a lot of your life is. I think our responsibility in the public arena around people like that is to really actively become that role model that child expects you to be.
Absolutely. And in my opinion, and not all winners are famous people, and only a few winners will ever become, or not all famous people are winners, but only a few winners really become famous because they're too busy. They're doing their own thing. They don't go out there. And win means what's important now. They know what's important now. They know WIN. Not necessarily somebody else has to lose, but they just know they just has this presence about them. I remember, Master Han, Bong Su Han, before he died, and he was just, you could just tell his presence is like Sensei Benny, like they teach all the time. They're preaching all the time. They use little words.
Yeah, but they walk the talk,
They constantly, and when they don't know something, they don't make shit up. They actually tell you, no, I'm not very educated about this. I think this is I'm not the right person for you, rather than making shit up and, stuff like nutrition and all this stuff that when somebody comes to me and I tell them, this is not my area.
Yeah,
I suck
be
at that,
honest.
actually, but there are better people that you can go to, but sometimes when we don't feel it inside, we want to make shit up just to make ourselves look all, whatever.
Yeah, no, as I said, look, that's why you'll see a lot of famous athletes say, look, I didn't ask to be a role model. That may be so, but the fact that you are so looked up to by these kids means whether you like it or not, you're a role model, so at least do your bit to behave in that manner. I was saying to Fariborz, I watched Joe Rogan podcast with Mike Tyson, and it really struck a chord with me, and I think it's so good for people to see that. For Mike, he was basically saying that his career as a boxer and this ferocious fighter and everything is almost like a blur, because what he does is look back and go, what the hell was that kid thinking? He owns the mistakes he made in his life, and the fact that he's virtually a different person. I think that's fantastic to see, that we can be contrite and say, yes, I really messed up a year ago, 5 years ago, 10 years ago, but I'm moving on and I'm learning, which is what the martial arts is about anyway. It's trials and tribulations, you win, you lose. So I think, again, that's just the message, pick your role models very carefully. Yes, admire them for whatever they became excellent in, but just be careful that you don't emulate all aspects of their life. As I said again, it's about learning what you never want to do with your life as much as what you do.
Right. And, for me, I've surrounded myself with great people, and I feed off their energy. I don't make any of the stuff up. You and Sensei Benny, and today we have George Chung come by and Graciela come by, and we just have this energy that I feed from, and surround yourself with good people, good positive energy, and keep remembering, create private victories, because those will end up to be huge public victories. That's not the reason why you should do it, but if you want that, little by little towards it. So thank you for your time.
Yeah,
Richard.
thank you. Thank you, Fariborz.
Let us know if you guys have a particular subject that you want us to talk about, or if you want Richard to talk about, and share with us, and we'll be out there sharing it with you guys. So